I want to tell you about the World Trade Center attack, where I've recorded various ways. In fact, people have pretended to put fake transcripts on a mass scale. So they're at countries A through Z, There's identities of jobs and our titles. Oh, that's not my job though. That's not my job though. A breaching method brought that to collusion/s. Little Rap Guy and friends are counter-obfuscated to show us this, but also recorded, used remotely without them everyone realizing. But to an extent/s, everyone has self-valued roles, replacing what both nature and what our founders with James Madison had declassified for themselves and for us. About, for example, why and how they did not have free speech. See, others measured and maintained when they use the words of everyone else and or of James Madison. They have replaced what he communicated. Everyone's communicated was measured and maintained. An extent of collusion against themselves and everyone else, always that body was sensed, not just because there were internationally monitored conversations involved in the differences of their guilt or of overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists, and Native American founders were born. Rules of all that. And Native American against Native American, when they help each other, that difference. This breaching method has us as systems tactically ulterior from the human species body of a whole bunch of individual bodies. Nature showed the ancients before the sciences became criminally foreign influence. Tactical delusions are off course, tricked, persuaded. There are proofs from off them. To unwanted collusions, but self-valued, because they didn't know how to respond, and they didn't discern that part of it. Big branches sit, break and fall, build wall, break and fall, but they recede. In other words, they have syntax regarding. There's a 1989 Reader's Digest article by Eugene Methvin. In 1984, for example, I believe it was in 1984, and before that, mayors, for example, in the branches of government, it is recorded how at countries A through Z, there are a certain type of victim/hyper victim, and the differences of their guilt, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists, even when they're not in the same cases. This is a use of location/s everywhere the human species body has a body. Breaching method system that not just American history is about, but we have this replaced. We have the truths of American history used for lies to screen them and to screen the actual value of the nature, of positive treatments and negative treatments, of difference treatments. Mandated law means you don't change and fake what people say. You don't self-value rules. In other words, I noted to you, they just fake transcripts. They fake ties to me as Weathersfield Police when I was a kid and now as an adult. The people I never even saw around campuses. And there's a tie between a whole bunch of people that real quick they made fake exceptions consciously with the people that were pretending I knew them I didn't know at all. Intercities and intra-cities. They have the town lines too, manifest in ways. We're going to address too how they communicate other for our founders about northern colonies and southern colonies, roles of the breaching method, even slavery against what nature communicates with our black pupils, whites of eyes. Forced rules replacing it and or sensing any voice communicating about nature for nature properly, let alone nature and our founders at the same time. Because our founders, who also demonstrated why and how, James Madison is the only founder we're allowed to know the name of. But we know that. So they used his plan. We were supposed to understand it that way. And it was to counter-extort, force everyone else to an extent of helplessness against the breaching methods, torture, extortion, slavery laws, against themselves and everyone else that are in measured, maintained roles. To maintain all natures of unity, all natures of individuals, of independence, incapable of defending that syntactically and reporting to be, let alone to protract. any human voice. You know how the human species body of individual bodies is about unity and is about independence at the same time. Prepare each human mind. Vaccine. Don't miss my live streams. Don't miss the Little Rap Guy and Friends YouTube playlists. YouTuber Anthony Wall. The live streams. Don't miss the live streams. So we must understand why our founders did not have free speech. how and why. They had to leave things declassified for themselves, not just for us. How and why, even though that is known, to use a phrase of Donald Rumsfeld, they have other pretenders. They have all truths used to imply others legitimately being or having been. Practical reason, to use the phrase of Immanuel Kant. Our founders' communications are replaced in our faces. We're supposed to understand clear as day how and why a hyperforeign breaching method had assigned all to roles with the craziest things, even replacing what nature communicates. Roles replacing the value of it, syntactically, appreciation of what nature communicates with black pupils, whites of eyes, and with exceptions, and with exception nature, and with a special difference. These are things that you'll learn with the YouTube channel of Anthony Wall and the live streams, too, in other words. And the World Trade Center predicate acts of WFSB, Connecticut Channel 3 News, they won't communicate with me because they attach me to fake conversations with themselves and with others. They have a bunch of people that have been involved in inter-campuses and intra-campuses and with names next to them, acting as collusion/S with fake transcripts into databases, as collusion/S with a breaching method, a predicate acts with facts method. These are people making fake examples too, fake exceptions, like with on Facebook. They're lying about what they think because these are people that are already on all sides of criminal and civil cases, including next to the World Trade Center attack that day. All sides of cases in the courts, from inside them, putting sequence shifts, evidences, crimes, and collusions. Also with others in the news at the same time. And the people involved with the crime scenes next to it, like the World Trade Center attack. A whole bunch of ways criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, our natures of industry is only concentrated with psychiatry too. That has principles, derangement. They have criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, fact treatment, nature, quality aspects of nature, principles, treatment, collusion/S, fabricating transcripts only concentrated with countries A through Z, the three branches of government, Weathersfield, Connecticut, and Weathersfield, Connecticut, and at the town line of Weathersfield, Hartford, is the corrections offices. And Weathersfield, Connecticut is the judicial branch offices. The differences of guilt there are next to it too, conjunctions to it, like Route 3, like Weathersfield Pizza House. Weathersfield Pizza House has all kind of wire crimes and predicate acts with educators tied to them. Identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake ties, fake nature ties to me with people with the state judicial branch offices and Weathersfield police forging and switching names. Their roles of people involved with child abusers, leaders of kids years apart. People that never saw each other on campuses, but they're in the same grade around there, trying to make fake exceptions too. That's also recorded. There are things recorded that show names, they're incapable to be names of the people of the sciences because a breaching method abused them since they were kids. For example, replacing what nature and what our founders communicated to them, to have communicated about how the white and black people's whites of eyes. Communications, revelations that nature communicates with us, shows us, stay replaced. Even though our founders too, their communications stay replaced about this. They wanted nothing to do with slavery. They were tortured, extorted. Everyone was measured and maintained syntactical, therefore physical collusion/S against themselves, against everyone around them to an extent/S, or that body was sensed per a breaching method that had, with fact treatment nature, breaching method, names, differences, appreciation, captivation method that came from some ancient times, since before modern religious messengers were even born. Oxy. No, how are you? How are you, Private Fortune? So I was saying, James Madison and our founders that we don't even know the names of. The only founder that we know the name of is James Madison. And then they went and got George Washington. He agreed to help them and to use that plan. And our plan was to counter-extort key people at key locations inside of more than 13 colonies that were already entrenched, and to make everyone have to break the rules of overt criminal enterprises, private ones, the countries involved, the company. In other words, international companies that were hyper additional, just like now. So, and then they had no way to defend themselves but to rely on the unity that James Madison's plan provided. But they had to leave even slavery entrenched northern colonies and southern colonies, and there were more than 13. And they couldn't even communicate honestly with themselves about the plan. They just had to do it and know that nature itself would show everyone. And if in other words, to follow it or to get the Constitution unabridged. But this is the same problem in countries A through Z. This breaching method measures and maintains us, no longer using nature's system where it shows us we are a human species, individual species body, a different species body made up of a whole bunch of different individual bodies. And there are totally different individual species. And each one of them is made up of a whole bunch of species bodies, so we could discern the identity of all things at once, generating all things. And if and when we are using systems tactical ulterior from its own, ulterior from its own, let alone tactical ulterior from it. See, this breaching method knew that nature would continually demonstrate to humanity. A human fact should be nature breaching method is one of the things that all the crazy laws and countries A through Z that the people know inherently, actively, and progressively. We are and have been through systems tactical ulterior. We have stayed systems tactical ulterior from the one that we could discern that we are capable of being, and that the nature itself is showing us to long water. Not so it's a good economic idea to put plastic bottles of water and have everyone walk around. Meanwhile, the suburbs were designed tactically denatured for torture, extortion, slavery, factory nature slavery method. Therefore, physical slavery method that was capable of measuring and maintaining everyone, not just from abroad and not just from grouped countries, because we are now groupings of humanity too. Through an systems tactical ulterior that could defend that syntactically and afford to be, let alone to protract, syntax proper regarding group differences. Because again, there is one identity of value / value progression that is showing us. It is not our species body. It is not the other species bodies, but it is all things. And we could ignore its system, but it shows us with finite, with grouped, and with active nature and progressive, increasing demonstration /S. And part of that is what we are being shown is its negative identity of relationship to itself, or its positive. Where and how every identity has relativity to positive and to negatives simultaneously. We are further simultaneously / hyper simultaneously a quality of diffusion. And English was revealed to be taught this way, but so were other ancient languages. And they were valuing. There are proofs that pantheism was all about valuing that and how there are other languages, and there were exceptions to education under pantheism. It was to be and to stay being led by that which is hyper invisible distinctly from, but still discernible distinctly from how it is invisible but still discernible as the parts of speech of English grammar that come with hyperconjunction. The hyper, they come with hyperrelativity. So black people's whites of eyes, we have black people's whites of eyes. Therefore, relativity exists because other species bodies too have two eyes. And there are exceptions in exception nature. Comes with demonstration /S of that identity, which is not our species body, and not the other species' bodies, but for how and where and how. It is all things anyway. In other words. And when we study that, wherever we could discern the extent of its individual identity of value progression, value/value progression, I should say, it comes with the rest of its complete nature. Just like each cell of your body, as a cell, and all the cells connect. So cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall /S, and we know that their shared identity and individually they are appreciating gases and their mixture with this, and water and its mixture with this, a quality of diffusion. But in also this is appreciation of a special difference. Everything's good, but I can't get a response. Private fortune, I can't get a response because in other words, and they just faked the phone transcripts. These are people involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and other agencies and police firms. Whole careers were kept criminally foreign influence, tactical illusions, raw, good people, but specifically to keep styles, nature's needs. Nature, self-value, roles of predicate acts with facts, methods, like fake transcripts. WFSB faked conversations with me about the World Trade Center attack while I caught them forcing child abuser leader of the kid, with families involved with that one and other ones through the years, already proven and further recorded. And some of them are good people, but they're staying evil because however one's forced to speak through others so they could cover things up. Specifically, it's recorded a whole bunch of intercities, a whole bunch of Wethersfield police have intercities, collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, a whole bunch of different countries, and roles of predicate acts with facts, methods, and names at and between each of the campuses, each age and nature of campus. No campuses come with the function of the republic for which we stand, and its campus's Marcia system, which comes with pantheism too, or it doesn't function properly. Because nature has a nature. And it is valued here where the way it values a special difference here, or our special difference is forced away from here, as forced space-nature transfer, as Leaf of Hadith, more probably having been defined this way by the ancients of pantheism, more probably having revealed, and demonstrably having revealed English and English grammar in its parts and its nature, as what science, the names of the people of the sciences can no longer afford to have short words proper regarding the way English was revealed to be taught, which is relative to where and to how the sciences share this identity of relativity / hyperrelativity. And the way it is that way, because part of itself won't mix with temporary / lasting space nature. And part of it is juxtaposed as life, as ourselves. And part of it is making more of its complete identity, which comes with its complete identity relationship to itself. And the only increasing value of that here, or as it forced away from here, which is also part of what we are shown with Leaf of Hadith, shown to us by nature itself. So heaven and hell and descriptions of it. There are things we learn through the nature of things, of sciences and of religions, distinctly from what their texts teach. And a breaching method knew that both the people, the difference of the guilt between the people attacking the religions, the people defending the religions, or exceptions, they would share self-valued roles, with uses of their own differences or other people's differences with fact treatment nature, quality aspects of nature, relative to how a breaching method keeps names A through Z as countries that can only be operated by locations, areas, and states. It keeps them incapable of defending principles, treatments, relative to why and how we need to appreciate. Relativity itself. We have black people's whites of eyes. This is relativity / hyperrelativity. Because it's also shown, even though they're distinct, the eyes of fish, of birds, they are non-distinct too. And they are simultaneous. But again, being generated by that further distinct identity of simultaneous nature, I refer to as the hyper-simultaneous. Therefore, and there are proofs that the ancients thought this way, talked this way. Boxing, the history of ancient boxing, it came from. See, the people of England don't even remember the history of England. Countries A through Z are trying to rebuild culture and difference, but now it is through systems tactilitarity. From the difference that had the biggest, most powerful bodies, valuing nature's course, valuing how it is functional, being hyper invisible distinctly from how it is invisible, but still, all the parts of speech are invisible, but still discernible of English grammar. The subject. There are subjects that we could appreciate only individually grouped and progressively to an extent, simultaneously to an extent. And with that, we could discern that there is what is more finite and what is with active relativity and too great at the same time to that, but it is still real too. It is itself too. But as that part of itself that we are not and we can't be, even the part of ourselves that is the same as the other species bodies. But note how humanity is the only species body that is criminally foreign influenced, let alone criminally foreign influenced / hyper-criminally foreign influenced. And right where no one wants to be. But they are anyway. And part of the way they need to get away with it is by pointing out how they don't want that. A breaching method needs that. Because a breaching method knew that nature would increasingly demonstrate to humanity as it does. Like, for example, all the laws of the colonization with slavery against our black peoples, white civilized communication, Native Americans method of, forcing everyone to tactically denatured lands and waters, needs to get food and jobs and titles through systems that are abridged, collusion / hyper-collusion, criminally foreign influence / hyper-criminally foreign influence. This breaching method needs us to counter things like criminal foreign influences at countries A through Z, while as collusion / S with itself, hyper-criminally foreign influence. It has them more so many ways. In the furtherance of the gangs of New York City, for example, the people that counter that. How many drugs and medicines, crimes and methods and wire crime acts and methods are behind the people with psychiatry tied to courts and prisons, the Connecticut corrections offices, and the judicial offices? They have a number of direct and indirect roles with names interstates and internationally involved with the World Trade Center attack and with the news and with people making debates and fishing, changing what people say. You guys are supposed to follow mandated law and not do that. Oh, that's what I read. That's in the database. They're putting fake transcripts in databases. They're putting fake and changed reality, setting up truths to be used by lies later. Their roles with vertical and horizontal confessions that are manifest the way the breaching method knew they would be. Because in ways that at countries A through Z, they make confessions to it. Before the church used confessions, before the time of Jesus Christ, already the Campus Martius, the republic for which we stand, from off all campuses and exceptions, names A through Z, as countries that could only be operated by locations, areas, and states. They were forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to defend themselves, locations, areas, and states, using those names, using unity, using independence needs, to defend themselves syntactically, therefore physically, from what a breaching method caused and sustained against them. Wrongly, their counters were, not understanding it. And then those people had to counter that correctly, but wrongly leaving out the breaching method too. And its roles with tactically degraded fact, human nature, quality aspects in nature, and abilities to appreciate and to utilize. The identity the sciences share is that of which box sings, but makes us shush to hear. That's why boxing, you hear the shush sound. See my YouTube shorts videos or my YouTube shadowboxing playlist, people. But in other words, so that's right now in Ukraine. I watched Judge Napolitano's Judging Freedom YouTube channel, his live streams a lot, because he's covering, like, apparently, many people have died in Ukraine and many Russians have died fighting them. And right through world wars, many Russians died in world wars. All these people from our countries died. The human species body, we have been systems dactylotary from its own, which is hyper-native pure. See, what nature showed us about Native Americans, our founders also communicated about that breaching method. But they didn't have free speech to communicate about it, details about it. For example, too, the Old Testament and the Quran, they were both written with consciousness that the differences of the guilt between people attacking the books or defending them, or the exceptions, would be exploited by the breaching method, and it would lock them secured that way. But like, for example, there are collusions between the people attacking the religion and defending them to keep from discernment, how they come with guides right up front to the interpretation of those books. See, they can't have that discerned because of the use /s, for example, of experts' roles, where they have subject treatments at campuses, for example. But for example, the Old Testament, the beginning of the Old Testament says, only defend right here, where the names of the people of the sciences will come together in the part that comes before it, which is just like the voice of all nature saying, so this is good from this, so I pull this, make good out of this. We're showing an identity per science has relativity to positive and negative simultaneously. And we can observe nature this way. But there's also a further simultaneous quality of diffusion. Like, we could be systems other than its own, but it demonstrates to us. And for example, that's why, in other words, clearer than day. Not the lawyers haven't been proper with Native American rights or the types of rights, because the breaching method employed distinctly hurt and distinctly helped to hurt every human's body. Measured and maintained self-body rules through an system of humanity voicings as a united voicing. In other words, as styles, needs in nature that can't defend that and afford to be, let alone to protract short words with convictions proper, let alone convictions with guilt, regarding principal treatments regarding what nature shows us, having us shown its body this way, having it showing us it generates these bodies, these individual species bodies made up of a whole bunch of individual bodies, to show us its individual identity of value / value progression, and how and why the rest of its complete nature. comes with all parts of itself distinctly. The finite parts of itself distinctly from the grouped and active parts, but non-distinctly and simultaneously slash hyper simultaneously. In the same way with the progressive or simultaneous parts, we are shown this distinct identity of hyper simultaneous nature as the identity of relativity slash hyper relativity. We are shown three distinct identity of relationships to itself that itself values equally, and they are simultaneously increasing as volume here. All exceptions in exception nature show the same. Here being any and everywhere, but also Earth's a special difference. And so when that is forced away, it's, in other words, let alone self-valued roles with it. Well, let alone self-valued roles without realizing, because everyone has been used remotely as syntax as since you guys were kids. Everyone replacing what James Madison communicated because you were taught to. That's why Marbury versus Madison. I learned from an accomplished pro se litigant that Marbury versus Madison means real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. But they have James Madison's communications replaced. And they were forcing a child abuser, and they have methods of that. And the natures of counters to such things they have and have had collusion slash S. Victims advocates. Like, so they have treatments of there's in a 1989 Reader's Digest article by Eugene Methvin has Clinton people and people involved with unions who are the same people since before 1989. But that was a 1989 Reader's Digest article with Clinton people and people interstate. There are people with the name Paul Zano and Ray Collo involved with a Bob Chase. A Bob Chase said a Phil Collo. A Phil Collo was involved with a Bob Chase at Whiting Forensics with others too. And with a Joshua Julian with the Facebook page of a principal obscure nature who was involved with other natures of organized crimes. And there were a bunch of people from Harvard Hospital with their kids involved, with foreign and domestic families involved with psychiatry, multiple courts personally and professionally involved with them putting fake transcripts through the mail into databases as collusion slash us with crime scenes and with crime groups, all sides of criminal and civil cases, and all sides of crime scenes, including all campuses as crime scenes. And the differences of guilt there are next to it. WTNH has a bunch of people involved with Russians with them, planting evidences at corners of streets and next to campuses who forced the principal child abuser. These are also educators with the name O'Neill in West Hartford, who are also involved with Whiting Forensics and putting fake ties and fake natures of ties to little kids and their families. To searching for truths to use for reliable exceptions to use fake. As collusion slash S2 with the interbranch. And a whole bunch of countries at the same time overt criminal enterprises and private ones. Weathersfield police and ones tied to them are confessing the name Scalora too, as further involved with the child abusers and some untimely deaths and roles with that at Trinity College, even if it was made up with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, has a bunch of people directly and indirectly involved with the Robert Rodriguez and people with the name Scalora, inter-campuses and intra-campuses involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, acting tied to people, putting fake transcripts for them, fake ties and fake natures of ties between kids. A whole bunch of people from other areas never even saw them on my street. And the other ones that I only know from other areas, they only, it's what's actually recorded. They went on my street to put fake motives and to plant evidences with the people involved with the wire crimes and the falsified police reports with multiple police departments switching and forging names. That's why we should not play the games when people speak about World Trade Center attack, predicate acts. These people have been pretending conversations with people and pretending they make conspiracy theories on a mass scale. These are identities of jobs, of titles differences on a mass scale. They cannot deal with facts properly. They have to, they cannot deal with the actual value of the data in databases since before computers. The ancient times, the republic for which we stand came with databases. Oh, what do you know about the Pax Romana? But we know more than that. In other words, they had printing way earlier. Forget about it. In other words, thank you, people. Thank you. So someone to please tell without judge Nepal time, because they just change your fake and hide what's actually typed to judges, to everyone. What would you like a suggestion about, Nick? I'm open to suggestions. I never learned anyone's song. I just made a song called "There Was Always Sun in California." I can't sing good though. Standing with it pretty good. Standing with it pretty easy. Go back. Oh, Dave, I was watching. You know who makes Andy Woods? He was giving advice on. He was on YouTube playing live today. I was listening to his live stream. Then I started playing. So you see Andy Woods and Rooster. He did a version of Rooster with just no words. You could hear that song. I was thinking of one. Sweet water, gathering rays. So even in the darkness, the slightest spark plays. Sweet water displays. So I could shout out to Sweet Water. This is not paid advertisement. Sweet water displays. So I was in the Ninth Circuit Court, right next to the World Trade Center towers, right before the attack. So it's not just like out of nowhere, or it's not like it's just that. where and how the news attached me to fake conversations with themselves, fake locations with themselves and with others. They attached me to fakes and changed communications with my family. They lied about the outcome in legal cases with and as collusions with people involved with that and with the people involved with the locations involved with that. Increasingly, body dumping spots, murders, intercities, and untimely deaths, and child abuse as leaders of kids, first force, and methods with that. All that is recorded at the same time. They just keep painting themselves. In other words, even with the news, they put their kids, they bring up their kids for their motivations. They're bringing them into it. They're changing and faking what everyone actually says and said. Increasingly, people at Hartford Hospital and tied to them, like a Joshua Julian is involved with a Mark Violet and a whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital with the name Leahy, involved with their kids too, with sexual and medical offenders of kids, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, people involved with um, victims advocates through time. Increasingly, all sides of criminal and civil cases and victims planting in the same collusions with predicate acts, federal crimes against little kids. Like a whole bunch of people tied to somebody Bejeria, his roles with intelligence families next to Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut. Have roles I never had a class. I've never saw him inside a campus in my life. He's increasingly involved with people with child abusers, leaders of kids, years apart. A whole bunch of different police forms and stuff, and training of them at and next to the campuses, like Central Connecticut State University in particular, though, but with their names with other campuses. So these are serious things, but no one follows mandated law. And they just change and fake phone transcripts, including with the family members that work for the phone company with the intelligence families. You know, and their extended family members, all kinds of corruption with probate court judges, concentrated and superior court judges, and their families and intimate ties with the same house / has. People involved with violence, threats, the police refusing to identify themselves legitimately. They're involved with gangs too, home break-ins, years apart, with the same corner brought up, all kind of wire crime action methods, serious things. The same ones from Connecticut have roles of the World Trade Center next to it, the investigations of it, the court cases tied to it. In other words, please get them on paper, one them in sequence. They're lawyers too, lawyers like Trantola, all kind of wire crime acts, identity theft, fraud, slander method. They're making conspiracy theories and collusions with to force more then and now with a principal upskirt nature, and their roles with the networks, their ad placements, the people that work for them, the intelligence, the difference of the guilt of the intelligence at the networks or next to them. And they lie about what they think about. Oh, I don't believe that. In other words, we're not trying to fight. Like, you guys won't follow mandated law about any of the predicate acts. Get me off of fake conversations with Channel 3 News. A bunch of people tied to Channel 3 News have roles with child abusers when I was a kid and I was an adult. And I caught them involved with elderly homes at the same time, untimely deaths, including one at Trinity College, including if that was made up. They have collusions with the FBI director and other people involved with the Saudi attackers. Also, collusions with some Mendez police and people tied to them, involved with the fake conversations with me at the Wethersfield police station as a kid and now as an adult. Like, there's a Mendez family involved intercities with the hallway of New Britain Superior Court and with Wethersfield Police Department involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders with them. And more people involved with the sexual and medical offenders of kids years apart. These are also people with differences of racketeering worse than war crime. As everyone opened their mouths, though, when they speak about black or white, and they leave out the breaching method. And they replace with nature and what our founders themselves left to, for us to have communicated about that. That's the value of it. We're supposed to just so we can tactically, we could counter-tactically get other countries to agree, and then I'll donate pantheism, and we'll do it in a way that we all agree. We're supposed to understand the nature is showing the individual leaders distinctly from the individuals of the species body. That that like there are impositions without nuclear weapons and technologies, even peaceful nuclear energy generation, and needs for it. A breaching method designed all locations of the suburbs before America's founders were born, with slavery entrenched northern colonies and southern colonies, tactically denatured. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to use them remotely from abroad. They had to have everyone on their food systems. In other words, all exceptions, exception nature. Otherwise, other ways, collusion slash S. We are in a semi-ancient trap. Almost right. All genres of music are right. Soulbox sings, but makes us just to hear. That's why. I should be using a pick.